Hello there, and then welcome to a brand new video. This is Hack Beyond Numbers, where we learn maths the easy way. Now in this lesson we are looking at simultaneous equations. This is the first of this playlist. Now we'll be looking at the substitution method, the elimination method, how to use graph to solve it, and then the matrix method. When we talk of simultaneous equation, we simply mean you have two equations and you want to look for the unknowns, usually two or more unknowns. You want to look for the value that satisfies all the equations. All right. Now, in this method, as in this lesson, as I said, we are looking at the substitution method. Now, before we apply this method, we want to look at the steps involved. So, in the substitution method, looking at the number of variables you want to solve, you make one of the variable the subject. And making subject simply means you express one of the variables in terms of the other. You do that in just one of the equations. Now, if you're able to do that, you substitute this expression into the other equation. You see, then you now solve the resulting single variable equation and you substitute back to find the second variable. Reading it wouldn't bring you a picture of what we want to do. So let's solve some questions to understand these steps over here. So starting with this first equation here, it says solve the system. So you mean system of equations, right? So solve the system x plus y equals 7, then x minus 2y equals 0. So our solution. Now we are going to follow these steps here so you understand the procedure. Now we have x plus y equals 7 as our first equation. So I'll just name it equation 1. And then x minus 2y equals 0. So I'll name that equation 2. All right. So it says make one variable the subject in one of the equations. Now what we mean here is it's up to you. You can either make this x the subject in equation 1 or you make x the subject in equation 2. Not only x, but you can also choose to make y the subject. Exactly. So for the purpose of this lesson, let's make x the subject in equation 2. Okay, so I'll be writing this here. So we have it here, which says make x the subject in equation 2. And what is equation 2? Equation 2 was x minus 2y is equal to 0, right? So trying to let x stand on its own, I have my x equals, this here is negative 2x. So if negative 2y, so if it is going to the other side, it becomes, we have a 0 here, then plus 2y. And we know 0 plus whatever it is still what? 2y over here. So now that we have successfully let x stand on its own, that is made x the subject in equation 2, we now put our x. So let's look at the instruction here. It says substitute this expression into the other equation, that is step 2. So this expression we have here, let's put it into the other. You see, so that is put x into equation 1. So putting x into equation 1, our equation 1 was actually x plus y is equal to 7. So we are no more going to write this x over here, but rather we are putting x, whose value is 2x. You see, so instead of the x here, I'm going to write 2x. Sorry, instead of the x, I'm going to write 2y. Its value is 2y. All right. So 2y plus our y is equal to 7. You see, so all we've done here is to do our substitution. Hence, we can now simplify. So 2y plus y gives us what? A 3y, which is equal to 7. And we can now make y the subject. So making y the subject, we would have to divide both sides by 3. So dividing by 3, it simply means our y is equal to 7 over 3. You see. Now the instruction says after solving for one of the variable, you now put it back into any of the equations to solve for the other variable, you see. So we can say, let's put the y that we've gotten, let's put it into any of the equations. So I'll choose to put it into equation 2, you see. So putting it in equation 2 is actually x minus 2y equals 0. So we mean instead of this y here, we should substitute this here. So that we have x minus 2, then the y here now becomes what? 7 over 3 equals what? Equals your 0. So simplifying further, you have x, which is equal to 2 times 7. That is x, which is minus, so 2 times 7, which is a 14 over 3 is equal to 0. Making x the subject, you have x being equal to this move to the other side to become a positive 14 over 3. You see? So this simply implies that our x is 14 over 3, and then your y is equal to what? 7 over 3. As simple as that. This is how we solve for what? Systems of equations using the substitution method. And as the instruction has said, you first of all make one variable the subject in any of the equations, after which you now substitute it into the other equation. So from here, we made x the subject in equation 2. And you don't put it back into equation 2, you put it into equation 1. After which you will now get a univariable equation, an equation containing just one variable, as you have seen over here. Then you can now solve for what? That variable, and you now substitute the answer you have gotten into any of these equations, and then solve for what? Your other variable. Let's solve one last question and then to test our understanding. Okay, so with this second question we have here, we have to solve the system 2x plus 3y equals 12, and then x equals y plus 2, right? So our solution, as usual, I would first of all name my equations. You can choose not to name it, but naming it gives you an order and then helps you to know what you are doing. So this here is my first equation, equation 1, and this is my equation 2. Now, how do I evaluate this? It says we should make one variable the subject. If you look at it carefully, x has already been made the subject in this equation 2, you see. So we can just go straight forward and say put your x, which is in this equation, equation 2, into equation 1. All right. So doing that, we know equation 1 is actually 2x plus 3y equals 12. So what we mean is, instead of this x over here, we are putting its corresponding value, which is y plus 2. You see? So that I have 2 into bracket, instead of this x, y plus 2. That is this here. Then plus 3y is equal to 12. You see? So evaluating further, we have 2 multiplying y, and then it will also multiply this 2 as well. 2 multiplying y gives us a 2y. Then 2 times 2 gives us a 4. Plus 3y is equal to 12. So evaluating, that is grouping like terms first. We have 2y plus 3y plus 4 being equal to 12. 2y plus 3y gives us a 5y plus 4 equals 12. We want to make y the subject, so we can move this 4 to the other side, so that at the end of the day, we have 5y equals 12 minus the 4. Simplifying further, we have 12 minus 4, which then becomes an 8. Now, we want to make y the subject. So we would have to divide both sides by 5. And with that, this 5 here divides this 5. Now we'll be left with y. So y is equal to 8 over 5. This here is the value of y. Now, if you have one of the values, we say you would substitute it into any of the equation, either into equation 1 or into equation 2, you see. So let's choose to substitute it into equation 1. As you can see, into equation 2, this one here. As you can see, it already has x being made the subject. If you have to substitute it into equation 2, which is actually put x, that is put y into equation 2, then we are going to get equation 2, which was x equals y plus 2. So that we now have our x being equal to, instead of the y here, we put 8 over 5, then plus 2. All right. So 8 over 5 plus 2 then gives us an 18 over 5, you see. So it implies that our x is equal to 18 over 5, while our y is what? 8 over 5. As simple as that. And anytime you solve these simultaneous equations, you can always choose to substitute back your values into their places and check if the left hand side will be equal to the right hand side. This ends our lesson, that is part 1 of simultaneous equation. We'll take more questions and then solve in our subsequent lessons. Now, I'll leave some exercises so you try on your own. So here are the questions you can try on your own. I'll try as much as possible to apply these concepts in word problems in our next lesson. So see you and then stay blessed. If this is your first time, you can always choose to subscribe if you so do wish, so that anytime I release a lesson, you'll be notified as well. Bye for now.